Hi, everybody. It's Claudia with Cabin Talk, and we're trying this again. I'm here with Harald Kautz-Vella, and we're doing a talk on geoengineering, which I'm very grateful that he's here because he knows a lot more about it than I do, and he has the knowledge that we need to spread. So, welcome to Cabin Talk, Harald. Good to have you on again.
Good afternoon.
And hopefully this time we can hear everything a little better. I'm going to keep an eye on what people are saying, but it's so good to have you. And it's a big subject, and there is a lot. I know you talked about it in the past, and but there are new people coming on to the whole subject of it, and they need the information as well. And sometimes it's not that hard to find, and sometimes it's hard to find. So I'm super thrilled that you are coming on again and talking to us about geoengineering and or what it really is.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to keep an eye on whether people can hear you or not. We'll see in a moment, but I think it's going better now. Yes, I see that people are able to hear you. All right.
Yeah. The the main thing, especially when the title is geoengineering, is to understand the basic deception that is covering the entire topic. Because from my perspective, the only thing that is connected to geoengineering at the moment is that many people get huge funding to talk about the subject, to develop, patent, prepare um, things that will be done maybe in future. And it's a huge discussion that basically tries to make us believe that A, it's not happening at the moment, and B, it's trying to change the image of geoengineering in the public mindset as something that needs to be done. And at the same time, we see all sorts of things happening that actually look like geoengineering. Then they all, of course, say, no, this is conspiracy theory. And this is, on one hand, right, on the other hand, wrong, because it is not geoengineering, but it is something very similar done for completely different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how the basic construction is set, that there is a huge propaganda machine running that, if you look at the purpose of it, actually is just something to generate the trust among the people to be willing to pay taxes to the United Nations on carbon dioxide prices. Yeah, they're looking for an easy taxation measure because it's not so easy to get in taxes from 8 billion people as a planetary, as planned government. So
Right.
the easiest way is just to take the numbers of carbon dioxide, and to be able to do this, so the easiest way is to demonize it,
Right.
although it's basically the oxygen the plants need. So why should you demonize a planet that is based on plant life? Uh, um, it's completely ridiculous, and you can find the basic mistakes already in the film that started the entire issue, The Inconvenient Truth by what's his name?
Al Gore.
Um, Al Gore. And the basic numbers in his presentation are completely misinterpreted. He has this correlation of temperature and carbon dioxide, and if you look at the fine tunes of the graph, you see that carbon dioxide is rising after the temperature shift. So it's getting hotter first, and then you have a gap of 80 years, and 80 years later, suddenly carbon dioxide comes in. This is what the graph shows, and this is understood by science. It's about the time it needs for the oceans to heat up. This is reducing the ability of the deep sea water to store CO2. And then when this is also heated up a bit, then the oceans are releasing carbon dioxide. This is why the coral life is slowly dying, because all of the CO2 released from deep sea, it's not the CO2 we are producing with burning coal and oil.
Right.
So the basic idea that there is a correlation at that point is completely deceptive. If you look into the older studies where you have, over the last 2 billion year correlation of temperature and CO2, there's no correlation visible at all. On the large scale, what you see is carbon dioxide getting less and less and less and less close to zero. And there was no influence on the climate by high percentage. We're at promille status at the moment. It was like 15% before.
Right.
And it was not 1 degree higher than it is today. So it's a complete lie, complete nonsense, bullshit. I don't know what to call it else. So that is one part. The other part you can really see very good in these long-term correlations is that temperature has 2 fixed points, 2 stable points. One is like we have it today, and one is 10 degrees higher in average. So yes, from time to time, the Earth is getting hot. And if you look at the curve, it goes like this. So you have very narrow areas where it's shifting, and then it's stable for a long time, and then it shifts back. And the periods, the length of the periods it's stable are sometimes very long, sometimes very short, but it's always a very steep decline or shift in between the 2 cold and hot temperature times. And we are in a cold period now. And if we should jump into a hot one, then we will have tropic climate all over the planet, and we're back to paradise. So in essence, there's nothing to be afraid of in terms of temperature. What we should not do is to destroy basically, if you have this shift from one stable point to another stable point, it's always a cybernetic control circuit behind it. So like for example, if it's getting hotter, more water evaporates from the oceans, so more water is in the sky, so more clouds are formed, so the sun is green and it's getting cooler. This is kind of a control circuit that is stabilizing temperatures. And there are a couple of control circuits connected to the humus content and the type of vegetation. Like if you cut down forests and wait until the humus is depleted by industrial agriculture, all the water that comes down as rain goes down to the groundwater, flows with the ripples back to the sea, and it can't re-evaporate. So you're drying the internal parts of the big continents, because normally rainwater comes from the oceans and goes like 100 kilometers into the continents, then it rains down for the first time. 90% from a forest would re-evaporate, form the next row of clouds that again rain down, and like this you can come into the core of the continent. And at a certain point, there's no humidity in the air left, and then you get deserts. Yeah, so running industrial agriculture, cutting down forests, and depleting the soil is suicide. And of course, the desert is hot, while the rainforest is cool. So if we talk about temperature shifts that are man-made, stop cutting down forests, stop destroying the soils we live from. Yeah, this is a really clever measure, but nobody talks about it. Yeah, they're talking about sunscreens, which is nonsense, because the sun is doing whatever it does. It's cyclic. We have the correlation to sunspots. We have a correlation of temperature to the position in the Milky Way. Actually, the entire the temperature control system that is setting the basic rules of hot periods and cold periods is all connected to the geomagnetic field shielding the sun radiation, the sun aura shielding the cosmic radiation, and the position within the spiral arm of the Milky Way that is basically shielding or not shielding from the galactic background radiation. So the entire radiation thing coming from space is defining the period of hot or cold climate on the planet. And there's nothing we can do about it, just natural cycles. And if a shift comes, the shift comes. If the planet survives it many, many, many times, it's all fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fine with creating deserts because deserts normally are pretty metastable. Once you created them, they stay there for 10,000 years.
Wow.
So, yes, care about climate, but do it in a clever way and not in the way somebody is basically decepting into your mind to be able to cash in something.
So you think it's all to cash in, to make laws and to make regulations and to basically make profits from it and deceive us.
Yeah. Everything is about money. I haven't seen a single act done out of a different motivation than money on this stupid planet.
Right.
We had a talk about the topic. Yeah. If you want
Right.
to know why, follow the money.
Right. Right. Yes. I mean, the thing that should clue everybody in a little bit on that is that they go to a climate summit and tell us to drive Priuses and or don't drive at all, and they fly in private jets. The hypocrisy of that drives me crazy. You know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
there you can see how serious it is.
yeah. So, do you think that human beings do not truly influence the climate?
We do by cutting down forests and depleting soil.
Mm-hmm.
By this week, you can see it. A rainforest has an average of 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. A desert has -5 in the night and up to 70 during daytime. Yes, we do influence the climate if we create deserts,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
There's no rain anymore. We do influence climate by mining uranium because radiation in the atmosphere is creating charged particles. Charged particles attract vapor. So you
Mm-hmm.
form billions of droplets around the charged particles from the radiation, and no raindrop can form because all the water is attached to these billions of radiation created water droplets that do not unite.
Wow, I've
So
never heard that
raindrops.
before.
That, yeah, look at the Sahel zone. We've got a huge new desert crossing Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It started after the French people tested their nukes in southern Algeria, and the Niger people started to mine uranium in Niger. Since then, there's no rain, and you can see it like a flame. You picture the big uranium mine on the map, and from there you see the zone, the rain-free zone, coming like a flame into with wind direction into entire Africa.
Wow.
This is what we should not do. So
Right.
there's so many things that we are doing wrong that we could fix. But no, the entire energy is wasted on a scam, basically. And it's a pity.
Wow. So I need to clarify that one more time, right? Because my viewers are probably tripping once they hear you say that. So you don't think that the official climate change, global warming rhetoric is the true rhetoric, is the truth?
No, there's no truth at all to this. On the large scale, temperature and CO2 do not correlate at all. Nada, nothing. One goes like, if you see the graphs, maybe we can picture them in later.
Right.
One graph is like CO2, like this, from high to close to zero, and temperature like this, no correlation, full stop. Yeah, it's impossible that there is a correlation because they don't act on each other at all. The only thing where you can see this tiny correlation is in short time spans, where you see basically it's getting a bit hotter according to sun cycle activity, and then the oceans release CO2. And then, of course, there's more in the atmosphere. But you do not change anything. This CO2 is the last link in the chain. So if you just try to reduce CO2, there's no feedback on the temperature.
Wow. And so
So
those,
this is complex.
okay, so those graphs that they sometimes show us, and not that I've looked that much into it, but like you said in the movie An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore, where they show us that it goes right hand in hand. Both of them are the same, you know, they go hand in hand. That's all BS.
The graph is accurate. It shows the delay by 80 years. You can see on the graph go short that actually CO2 is before temperature, the other way around. Temperature is before CO2 rise by a difference by 80 years. The graph is pictured in a way that you don't see the little shift on the axis. And that's it. The graph is correct, but the comment that you put onto the background of the graph is the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
People are
just
saying,
scientific.
right, right. I just want to tell my viewers real quick. We know that the volume is messed up. I think it has to do with Facebook. I don't think it's on our end, to be honest. And so I will upload the video afterwards on YouTube and on BitChute, and I will put the links on my Facebook so you can hear it in its entirety in normal volume, because I honestly think it's Facebook messing with us. We've tried a couple times and it's not getting any better. And I can hear Harald perfectly and the recording is going good. So I think it's Facebook that is messing with us, since they never like when Harald comes on and talks about things they don't want us to talk about. So if you can't hear it well, I will post the link afterwards from YouTube. And I just wanted to put that out there real quick. So that is a really interesting revelation, and it will be really interesting to a lot of my viewers, Harald, and we'll get some feedback on that, I'm sure, which is fine. We like feedback and we like discussion. We like actually having people think and pay attention. And so that's an important part. Now, what about those beautiful lines in our skies?
Can have different sources. Most of them are particulate plasmas brought out by military airplane for military purposes. This is connected to rocket shields, to 3D battlefield monitoring. It's connected to in the context of the rocket shields to microwave controlled electromagnetics in the sky, where you can up concentrate energy onto a point, basically to create an explosion out of nothing. You can heat up the air. If a rocket comes in, you just calculate the flight path and heat the air up to 10,000 degrees, and the rocket melts. This is kind of rocket shield technology.
Wow.
The control of these electromagnetics, the source is coming from antenna systems, mostly microwave. And the way they manage to control the electromagnetics in the sky, it's called horizontal drift plasma antennas and columnar focal lenses. Basically, if you create hot air in a layer, this is what we know in nature as a fata morgana. Mm-hmm. Electromagnetics are reflected on the surface of a hot layer. This is one type of application. So especially if you have an electromagnetic beam that you send from one point on the surface, and you want the beam to hit another point on the surface, it's a bit difficult because we're living on a sphere, except of those people who live on a flat Earth. But I'm not talking to them. Yeah, so you need a kind of mirror in the sky where the beam goes against and then down again to be able to reach ground on a long distance. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one part, and the other part is normally beams don't go unless it's laser 100% straight. So it's nice to refocus.
Mm-hmm.
So what you create is a column of hot air that is functioning as a lens for a beam. So it's refocusing by going through. And if you have these two functions under control, basically you get a 3D model of a electrified sky where you can define every energy concentration at every point just using a low number of transmitting antenna systems. So basically you control the electromagnetic energy content of every single square cubic meter of air in the atmosphere. All you need is particulate plasma to carry these waves.
Wow.
And to be able to transform the waves into heat. And this is done by a mixture of aluminum oxide, barium strontium titanate, dotted with europium, and some other more high-tech applications in between. But the most, from the tonnage, the most of it is barium strontium titanate and aluminum oxide. This is what is called, with the other components, smart dust.
Right.
So this
and
is
talk to us about smart dust. Tell us about smart dust real quick, Harald, since you mentioned that.
This goes, this is into the next layer of administration. The military, the Pentagon, the Russian military, they're basically interested in controlling the airspace and having something to defend against incoming missiles. Cover the entire territory with radar, like it triples to the distance you can observe things, and it gives you the possibility to monitor it 3D, not 2D, as always shown in the films with the screens disc.
Right.
This is old-fashioned radar. So this was one part. The other part is that at a certain point, these plasma films are created by the military, but also used by the intelligence community. And this is where the other components of the smart dusts come in. I'm not sure how responsibilities are exactly shared. I know that, for example, most of the nanocrystals are brought out by using additives into the JPH native fuel. So the standard fuel for military aircraft carries the chemistry that then forms the nanocrystals in the spray pyrolysis happening in the turbine of the aircraft. Yeah, this is kind of how it is technically done. So,
right.
So the big part of it done by the military, but then we have special planes that bring out other particles that are also part of the smart dust concept. It interacts if you basically observe all these particles once they are embedded in the human body. You can see the interaction of the particles that are normally regarded as military origin and the particles that are transhumanistic. And still they interact, so that it's like a dual use good in a way, shared in between military and intelligence community. And what the intelligence community wants to have is the ability to track every single human, exactly know where he is. This is why some of the particles reassemble to biotechnological units that basically absorb the light sequences emitted by our DNA, which is like a fingerprint, converted into microwave and then radiated microwave to the outside, which is detectable by their antenna system. So we basically permanently emit our fingerprint, our electromagnetic fingerprint, so they can observe us, where we are, what we do.
Wow.
And another part of the wave sets coming out are basically encoded version of our emotions and thoughts. So we emit our state of consciousness, our flow of consciousness. And what I know is that they can record it and resend it. I don't know if they can fully understand it. This is something I've got no clue if technology is evolved. With emotions, I'm sure they can, because there should be basic patterns. But with thoughts and language, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So what works for sure is tracking you down, knowing exactly where you are. What works is reading your basic emotions. And the same unit that is reading also is writing, so they can send back the wave to single people or to communities for mass mind control to induce emotions. So if you want to kickstart the next Arabic Spring, send them some anger, very easy, to get your revolution.
Right.
Also possible for individuals, if you need the next school shooting, you target a single individual that had been prepared by MK Ultra programming, and you can induce the necessary emotions and maybe even speech into his head to give him orders to do so.
Right.
This is what they can do. And we all know that one of the main jobs of intelligence agencies is doing inside jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So Harald, do you think that everybody is infected with the smart dust? Everybody has that in their body?
Everybody is infected with all disease. This is a basic misunderstanding of medicine as well. We are not like the wall in the hospital, completely sterile. We carry all the germs and microbes and fungi and viri in us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we need a disease to clean our body, then we get sick. This is the basic concept of disease. Disease is always a welcome step to reset our original biology. And if we kill the symptoms, we stop ourselves from detoxing and cleansing, and then the next disease steps in that is a little bit worse in appearance to clean even more dirt out. And at the end of the day, we die from cancer because we avoided cleaning our house
Right.
all our lifetimes. So yes, we are all infected, but if our body doesn't need the fungus to help detoxing, then it will not grow, because the immune system will keep track of it and keep it low in numbers. So there's no danger of a pandemic to have a disease killing us. So this is just coming from the panic the medical pharmaceutical industry is spreading to sell their remedies.
Mm-hmm.
Biology doesn't function that way. Yes, we're all infected, but if you have symptoms, you should consider that you have lived a quite poisonous lifestyle, that you're full with acids and heavy metals, because then the biological part of these technologies is used by the human body to grow in higher numbers, to absorb heavy metals and acids, to get them basically stored somewhere in the system where they can't do damage. Even then, the disease is still bringing you into a better condition than you would be without.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, yeah, the symptoms refer to something. If you have symptoms of one of these diseases, you should have a close look at your lifestyle and change it if you want to get better.
Right.
We talk about all this in the conversation on transhumanism and malnutrition.
And nutrition, yes. And I have that talk on YouTube as well for you guys if you want to see that. So that's an important one. That's one that you have to listen to like 3 times, literally. And so, okay, so back to what they are spraying, and you said aluminum, strontium, barium, and a couple other things. And so that is to control everything.
Yeah, if you say that the truth, the concept behind is where you see the highest amount of coherence within things, then yes, you have a combination of the crystalline nanoparticles with biotechnological units. And this basically, as far as I know, these are 4 different particles. It's aluminum oxide, barium, strontium titanate, dotted with the europium, originally coming from the military side. Then you have the Morgellon fungus that is embedding himself into the body. The piezo crystals are forming neuronal nanobots in combination with the malnutrition. We have that topic in the other talk. And there's one more that is in the air. This is synthetic RNA that is basically the brain of the smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
It is for solely a command and control unit that is processing the controlling computer program of this energy grid
Mm-hmm.
and interacting with all the other particles. And we even have microscopy of raindrops where you can see how Morgellons and piezo crystals interact and feel.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an integrated dust field. This is smart dust. The RNA is giving the intelligence to the dust.
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's called smart dust. RNA is able to process consciousness. And this is difficult to understand because we're not used to this crossover thing between technology and biology. There is
Right.
no difference between AI and the mental field.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have RNA that is processing a mental field, you already have a quantum computer. So it's a consciousness you can connect to a computer. This is where it gets in touch. This is how the merging of biology and machine is happening on that level.
Mm-hmm.
You need to reduce the biology to the mental and extend the computer particles that can communicate with RNA in the range of mental fields, which is blue light.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a computer processor, stretch away the color, and make it process some data, it's shining in blue light.
Wow.
Yeah? Because there's an active mental field inside. It's the same physics. This is why they can communicate.
Wow.
It's complicated. It's only a half designed by man. The other half is alien technology. This is why it's so elaborated and so well developed. And some of the intelligence that is within the grid is also not of human origin. This is where even it's like a long story of deception. The military guys were decepted by the intelligence community into spraying, and a little bit force was applied. One general refused from the Navy and got shot twice in his chest, suicide officially. So the next general agreed to play around with the CIA and spraying. And the intelligence community were decepted into doing things by the black magicians coming from the Tavistock Institute. Typical, for example, MK Ultra, you would say it's a CIA project, but no, it's just applied black magic, witchcraft. Same torture rituals are used by witches for ages. MK Ultra is black magic. So this is where the black magic community ties into the intelligence community. So there are interests coming from the black magic community that were basically brought into the intelligence community, so that the normal agent isn't even aware of that he is serving black magic interests. So then the black magicians, of course, they have their masters out of the demonic world. Yeah, this is where we come to this secondary consciousness that our planet is infected with. We just tested the names, the correct names. Demiurge is a planetary spirit that has no planet, that is not incarnated into a planet at that time. So he's like a bodiless soul. And we do that at times as well, that if we die and we don't find the correct path to be reincarnated, then we turn ourselves into attaching spirits that try to take over the living body of somebody else just because he's a bit weak at that point. And this
Right.
is also happening on a planetary level. So we have duality on this planet with a secondary planetary spirit that is trying to take over the control of this biosphere. Known as Demiurge or as Satan in the biblical or Christian context, carrying hundreds of other names. And this is basically the consciousness that has set up all black magic cults on this planet, like direct communication or communication via demons or archons. It's the hierarchy. Satan, archon, and demons, and all the communications of humans is what founded the black magic traditions, and they basically focus into this merging of Rothschild family, the British Crown, and the Tavistock Institute, then leading to the intelligence community in the United States after the Tavistock exported itself to the States after World War II, a little bit prior to that. This is kind of the historic line how this developed. So we have the deception of the black magicians by the demons to just make a deal in power. I give you my services as a demon, and you can be powerful and rich in the world, and therefore you serve my interest that I have as a demon. This is why this all is tying in so beautifully together, not beautifully, but perfectly. Like if you look at certain transhumanistic concepts, you need the airborne particles from the military, from the intelligence community. You need certain substances sprayed by Monsanto. You need certain substances that you inhale when you take a flight with an airplane, like the organophosphate from the turbine, from the air coming from the bypass of the turbine into the cabin room. And this all ties in to form certain nanobots that play a role in the transhumanistic context. And nobody could say, yes, so this guy planned all this, because it's planned on the demonic side. Yeah, and there's only just a secondary layer on top of it that was communicated to humans to make them join into the concept. This is what made it so incredibly difficult to understand the overall concept, because there's no visible construction plan behind. The sense with comes actually from the interest that were in the game from this demiurge, from this planetary spirit, trying to take over the biosphere, turning us into biorobots that do not listen to their own instincts, planetary instincts, that are willing to basically follow the inspiration of an evil entity.
Right. Wow. That's a lot to swallow for some of my viewers, Harald.
Actually, it's very easy.
It is actually very easy once you see the connections. It's very easy. Yes, I agree.
The hardest nut to crack is actually taking into account that there are demonic entities that try to control our lives.
Right.
This is something, if you have the experience yourself, it might be easier. If there's more than one voice in your head, then you could rely on your own experience and say, yes, demons do exist.
Mm-hmm.
I can, yeah, and it's not something that we need to be ashamed when we realize we are not just ourselves, but we have a demonic influence within us. When I started to work on the topic, I thought I'm just a normal human being, and now we've been dealing with the issue of demons for 4 years maybe, and since then I've expelled I think 17 demonic entities from my system. Realizing there is something, isolating it, cutting it off from imagery supply to the point where, yeah, I would say the lesson was learned, because every demonic entity comes in with a deal.
Right.
Offering something, getting something back, consciously or subconsciously. And when the deal is understood and broken, then either they just leave or it's easy to pull them out.
Right.
And I had 17, so what? Yeah, I still was a nice guy back then. I just was less conscious. Because the more demons you have, the more unconscious you are. The entire perception of the world was kind of designed in a way that being half conscious, subconscious, unconscious is part of biology. No, it's not part of biology. It's an effect of being half possessed by demonic entity.
Yeah.
Because they need to hide in an area that we don't perceive as being us. And so it's over the cycle of setting a trauma. It can be this lifetime or former lifetimes, and so on the spiritual side. And once the trauma is set, the possibility is given for a demon to just go into play.
Right. Right.
And like we have the nice example of circumcision.
Right.
Inviting a demon.
Now, Harald, I want to backtrack for a moment here into when you said flying and what we pick up when we are flying in airplanes. If you could go into that a little bit, because a lot of people fly for business, a lot of people spend actually a significant amount of time in the air. I usually try to fly only once a year at this point to see my family in Germany, but and I used to fly a lot more than that, but now I'm leery of flying regardless. So if you could talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, the nanoparticle share of the field is produced by spray pyrolysis and jet turbines. So a lot of the dust is produced exactly on flight height. When you fly, you can see this. You look out of the window, and you can see a silver stripe on the horizon, which is not that our future is going to be bright. It's basically the opposite. So you can see that you fly through one layer of dust.
Yeah. Yeah.
The air is taken in straight through the bypass of the turbine into the cabin. So what you breathe is dust. I remember one short flight from London to Berlin. When I left the plane, I had like milk running out of my nose.
Right.
This is aluminum oxide and barium strontium titanate. The barium strontium titanate is the thing that is believed to cause mad cow disease and Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
Yeah.
And we're breathing in a gram of with one flight. This is one part, just being in the center of the smart dust layer, breathing in the dust, brings all the particles into your system. The other part with flying is that the lubrication oil of the turbine normally is in a sealed chamber, but if the turbines wear out a bit, then this sealing is not perfect anymore, and then vapors from the lubrication oil comes into the cabin. And this oil contains organophosphate. And these two substances are half of the recipe to create neuronal nanobits.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? The full recipe would be like organophosphates, barium, strontium, teternat, and mercury is what you need to strip the nerves naked. And then you will need barium, strontium to replace the copper in the nervous system. And then you can grow these nanobots. One batch. There are three basic transhumanistic technologies. So the first one are the neuronal nanobots, creating an interface between our nervous system to outer electronics. The second one are the Morgellons, creating an interface between DNA light communication and outer electronics. And the third one is basically RNA communication that is straight going onto the lingual level of core consciousness. So we have three levels. And if you take all three, basically the biorobot is perfect because every single aspect of consciousness is controlled. You have the physical perception of yourself, you've got the emotional perception and the mental perception.
Yeah.
And then you are completely controllable, predictable. Your behavior becomes completely predictable.
Right.
Because all you need to do is set an impulse on any of the three levels, or all three of them at the same time, and then you will just react and predict it. So this is about flying. It's the core source for these particles. Whether it's affecting you in a bad or not so bad way is depending on your ability or the ability of the body to detox the organophosphates.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who really suffer, like the pilots and flight attendants that need to quit their job after 3-4 years, normally they have a deficiency in the ability to detox organophosphates.
Yeah.
So they have worse effects of this, but I met people with Kautz-Vella, no, with Parkinson.
Mm-hmm.
Parkinson is also related, and I lived a healthy life. What did you do as a profession? I'm a manager. Yeah, my company is in Brazil. I fly once a month from Germany to Brazil.
Right.
And then you have the reasons for this. Yeah, and I think it's just about time to not to punish the airlines, but to make a straight statement that we are not accepting this poison.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or if you can't avoid it, at least fly 787 because this is the only plane that is avoiding at least the organophosphates
Mm-hmm.
by taking in the cabin somewhere else. You still get the snotter,
Right.
but at least not organophosphates.
And I have to
And
say,
it is essential.
oh, go ahead.
When they tested the technology for the first time out there for the mad cow disease pandemic in Great Britain, they had a mandatory vaccination containing the organophosphate. So without the organophosphate, the entire thing doesn't exist.
Wow.
So it's a good point to start.
Wow.
And this comes with pesticides, and it comes with airplanes. So eat organic food and don't fly and be on the subside.
Wow. So don't fly, period. Don't fly.
Yeah, if we should fly, we still would have our angeloos.
Good point. Hey, you just can't see them. They are there.
Yes, but this is why we don't fly at the moment. If we should become etheric enough that they are really there, then we will fly again.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's going to be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, you know. And when last time when I flew last summer, it was a shorter flight, but I literally flew, and I said that to you when we talked before. I flew through a soup of white air. I mean, you couldn't see the hand in front of your eyes. It was such a soup, and it's I mean, just seeing it, I was like, oh shit, you know. I was thinking, this is horrible. And so
Yeah.
it's I can't imagine what people do that have a job that have to fly, like you say, once a month, 3 times a week. I mean, a lot of people are in the air a lot for business, and there's no business in the world that would be worth that to me anymore.
There is one more aspect to, um, let's say, the geoengineering topic. I'm taking a little circle to get there. I remember I read about in Red Indian prophecy from the United States. I think it came out in '63,
Mm-hmm.
where they said actually humanity will have 4 major warnings in the
Mm-hmm.
coming years. And the first one that was mentioned was a very cruel famine in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was the Biafra zone famine, um,
Right.
where we should have understood that it's no good idea to meddle into other people's business
Right.
with medicine and external food supply, just making them multiply like hell and then destroy their own habitat. The second warning was supposed to be a disease that is spreading because of drug and sex addiction, making people die from a flu.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a prediction of AIDS popping up from '63. And when the second lesson is not learned and humanity doesn't return to nature and to a natural way of living, then the prophecy said then it's too late for humanity to find back
Mm-hmm.
out of their own resources. And then it already will need a divine intervention to rescue us. And the third sign that then was predicted was that our lust and hunger to spend holidays all over the place will make us fly
Mm-hmm.
um, so much that at the end of the day we are going to have holes in the sky and everything under those holes will burn.
Mm.
This is the third prediction. And if we don't learn from that one, then only a few native tribes will survive the fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what they said, and it's quite interesting because predicting a famine, okay, famines happen, but predicting AIDS is quite interesting. And now these holes in the sky connected to this prediction, hardly anyone has that on the radar yet. Because what happens is that the barium strontium titanium is piezoelectric, so it spits electrons. When you release electrons in an environment that contains ozone, then the ozone depletes to oxygen. And
Wow.
free electron is always igniting chemical processes. So ozone is unstable. The stable version would be oxygen. So 2 ozone molecules and an electron is enough to deplete the ozone. At the same time, barium strontium titanate is absorbing UV, so it has the same function as ozone. So
Mm-hmm.
once you spray all these smart layers on the point where you have them, you don't get problem with UV radiation, although ozone is completely depleted.
Wow.
Because it's replacing at the same time. Now, if you stop spraying, or if you have unpredictable wind patterns, and the smart dust layer is opening and is getting holes, then you get holes in the sky with no smart dust and no ozone. And then you measure what you could measure last year in the United States, that you suddenly get a rise of UVB and UVC levels by 1,400%.
Wow.
Yeah? And this is burning everything to death.
Right.
Yeah? So we already can see that actually the third prediction is slowly falling into place. And this is in a way connected to not geoengineering, but it's the same field of science where you should take a closer look at what we are doing with our atmosphere and with substances and particles in this atmosphere. And this is a very bad idea.
Right.
To bring out something that is completely depleting.
And somebody's saying, what is the fourth prediction?
I don't even want to
go into it.
To share the picture.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe some of the native tribes that live far away from civilization might survive if they find shelter.
Right.
So focus on the positive.
And they are the only ones who've not.
We can't learn our lesson. Yeah, but it's not like, okay, now I understood, let's go to the next holiday to Hawaii here. Yeah, have fun, have my cocktails on the beach. Like this, it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I agree that our behavior is not conducive to a wonderful, in sync with nature planet. It's just not, and it hasn't been for quite a while. And we have to change our ways, which is what I talk about incessantly on my channel now, because I feel we need to live with nature again. We need to live with nature and not against it and not above it. We need to live with it. And that is what we have forgotten how to do. And it's really devastating. And I see it every day, and I'm trying to, all we can do is try to educate as much as possible and live our own life the way with integrity with nature.
Yeah. The beautiful thing is nature is providing us with hundreds of motivations to do beautiful things.
Right.
Yeah. The civilization provides us with only one motivation to do things, and this is money.
Right.
And if you give me the opportunity to shift back to the natural way of life, I will be happy with my 100 motivations to do beautiful things, because the money thing is getting bored.
Right.
And
right.
destructive, painful.
Yeah.
So we survived before.
Yeah.
There's no plus in no gain in living quality anymore, because this setup of motivations and satisfaction and desires and satisfaction is completely messed up and sick.
Yeah.
It makes me puke if I see out of what motivations, with what types of pleasures people are. We all already think that kind of the fulfillment of an addiction, or the service to an addiction is fun or joy.
Yeah.
This far it has. This, it's just. if you could compare between the perception of the world in between generations, you would see what the generation.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sad thing. This is one of the reasons why the side effect of old age disease is welcomed by the system. They're pretty happy when old people do not remember how life looked like.
Right. Right. Yeah.
We have shorter periods of the ability to compare. They tried to introduce the microwave in 62 or 64, and everybody rejected it because of food out of the microwave was just not edible.
Right.
It tasted disgusting. Then they realized, okay, let's lower the food quality to the extent where the microwave doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you take the supermarket trap, put it in the microwave, and it tastes all the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
This is degeneration.
Yeah.
And we're doing this to ourselves. There's no need to complain. There's no need to feel like a victim because we are the perpetrators of it. We are doing this to ourselves out of free will.
Yeah.
And the only thing you need to do is basically understand where the deception is, tricking us into this action.
Yeah.
And then you go back to no.
Exactly. Right. Right.
And this is when fun starts to be funny again.
Right. Exactly. It's true. It's true. And I think people need to really realize that we actually have a lot of power just by changing our choices. Just by changing the way we look at things will change everything. And by what success is and what rich is, if we redefine those things in what is actually true, then it becomes really very easy and really great and happy. But if we're stuck in that hamster wheel trap of money and so-called success, which is bigger and more, then that's just not going to work. And it actually really doesn't bring happiness. It just does not bring happiness.
No, just watch the next millionaire you meet. Look
Exactly. Yes,
how he looks like.
exactly. I said to my viewers before, Harald, that I had the privilege in a sense of learning to work in an area where everybody was really, really wealthy, extremely wealthy. And I have never seen an unhappier bunch of people in my life, honestly, which is why I feel it was a privilege to witness that. I mean, they were so unhappy and angry and ornery and depressed. And I was like, well, that is what I never want to be. So I think we are finding, or not everybody, but a lot of people are finding that the way we are living now is not the way to live for a happy life. And so people are looking and people are searching. And I think that's what is going to make the difference. I mean, for all of us.
A beautiful red Indian saying, I remember, if you realize that the horse you're riding is dead,
Yes.
get off his back.
Right. Right. Yes, exactly. Yep. That sums it up pretty much. So I am so thrilled you came on. Is there anything else we forgot to cover or that you would like to elaborate on? And I'm gonna just say one more time, we know that the volume is horrible on Harald's end. I believe it's on Facebook. It's not, because the recording is fine and I can hear him perfectly. So I will put the link to the YouTube video on here afterwards so you guys can watch that on here. Okay, sorry about that, Harald.
No, that's it. I think
Yeah,
got a good sketch of it.
yeah. I think it was a massive amount of great information that literally nobody else talks about except for you and can convey it so calmly and precisely. So I'm super grateful you came on again. And I'm sure we will find another topic to have you back. I hope so, anyway. And
We will.
yes, we will. And on that
If,
note,
if nothing pops up, I already thought about that moment as well. You know, when we're running out of serious topics, we could start a cooking combat or something.
well, that's what I've
Get the
been
internet access to the
doing.
kitchen.
Exactly. I mean, that's where real change comes from, action. But no, as we were talking, I had another idea that I'm gonna run by you afterwards. But I think we definitely find more topics. So thank you again for coming on, and we hope to see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye, Harald.